I think it's quite challenging for young people today because you're intending to go straight to uni. You have to have an understanding of what you're passionate about at such a young age, because you have to be thinking about what you'll be studying during VCE to get you into those uni courses and so on. That itself is a challenge because for most young people, I don't know how you decide what it is you want to do with the rest of your life.
We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
Welcome to the Young Minds podcast, hosted by Burke Britton Financial Partners. This podcast helps young adults build confidence and clarity when it comes to money, empowered by youth, inspired by experience. We know that navigating the world of finance in your late teens to 20s can feel overwhelming, whether it's understanding your first pay slip, learning how to invest, managing student debt, or just trying to save without missing out on life. Because believe it or not, it is actually possible.
That's why this podcast is here, to make finance more accessible, more understandable, and way more relevant to your life right now. Each episode will break down key financial concepts, give you practical tips you can actually use, and have real conversations about money. From budgeting and credit scores to purchasing your first home, we'll cover it all.
As university students coming to the end of our degrees, we created this podcast not because we have all the answers, but because we're asking the same questions you are. Each episode will be accompanied by a qualified financial advisor from the Burke Britton Financial Practice to provide insight and guidance in the topics to come. No confusing words, no lectures, just honest insight to help you make smarter money moves now and in the future.
So whether you're studying, working, or figuring things out, you're in the right place. Accompanying us today is Delta, a qualified financial advisor here at Burke Britton. Welcome, Delta.
Thanks, Daniel and Bridie. Thanks for having me on, and congrats on your first episode. It's great to see that you're taking the initiative to educate our young people and increase their financial literacy.
So maybe tell us a bit about yourself. You're a qualified financial advisor here. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Daniel. My story is probably a little bit different to Jay's, reflecting on your first podcast last week. I finished schooling and expected that I was going to go into some form of tertiary education straight out of high school. And it just turned out that didn't happen. So I had a couple of years where I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I started in some different roles around sort of traineeships in retail. And ultimately, I started working in an accounting practice. I was in the accounting practice for 4 years, so I had some really good exposure to sort of tax and accounting work. And that really shaped my thoughts around the fact that I wanted to help people. I attended a presentation that coincidentally Peter Burke, the founder of Burke Britton, presented at with a couple of other advisors. And when I saw them speak, I was so motivated that I could see that you could help people in this profession and you could be really proactive. So certainly not a slur on accountants, but I felt that we had an opportunity to really be proactive in helping people solve either money problems or opportunities that they had. So yeah, got a foot in the door at Burke Britton in a reception role. And here I am 20 plus years later, 3 kids later. I've worked through all of the professional university qualifications, and you never stop learning. So I'm always looking for ways to hone my skills.
Thank you. So by the sounds of it, you started the work before you actually did the study. So you went back. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So as I said, I started here in reception, but I wanted to be a financial planner at that stage. I think it took me from sort of the day that I started here about 17 years before I had all of my qualifications, 3 kids later, and I was ready to go. And I was always encouraged and mentored and supported in that period of time to sort of take that next step. But I was keen to sort of have some life experience under my belt to be in a really good position to support our clients.
Mm-hmm.
So first job out of university, a lot of people don't really know what to look for, whether it's a small company, do they go for a larger company? And then the other question is, it's about, do you choose your passion? Do you choose which one provides you the great income? Could you just provide some insight into how to go about making some decisions in regards to those items?
Yeah, of course. I think it's quite challenging for young people today because you're intending to go straight to uni. You have to have an understanding of what you're passionate about at such a young age, because you have to be thinking about what you'll be studying during VCE to get you into those uni courses and so on. So that itself is a challenge, because for most young people, I don't know how you decide what it is you want to do with the rest of your life, or at least for a chunk of that time. So I think if you can be very broad with your studies and not close any opportunities off. If you're thinking, oh, it's finance, but I'm not sure if it's accounting or if it's financial planning, or I like analytics, for example, just try and be very broad until you have a really good understanding of what you might like to do in the future. As far as sort of opportunities out of university, I'd actually say it's opportunities while you're still at uni for things like internships. And maybe, Bridie, you want to touch on a little bit your experience in coming into Burke Britton and how that came about?
Yeah, definitely. So for me, I went through high school wanting to be a vet, actually. I was obsessed with animals as a kid, so I thought that was for me. And so as part of, I think it was either year 10 or 11, I went and did a week of work experience in a vet clinic. And I walked out the end of that and I was like, I can't do that for the rest of my life. So like as a tip from me, that would be like do work experience, do an internship, do something that gets you into the real side of the job, because you don't know what you're doing until you're actually there, kind of thing. And then going into uni, I went into commerce, and I got that from my dad, who's an accountant. He kind of pushed me towards that way a little bit. He was like, you might like this. And I was big numbers kid as well, like loved maths going through high school. But yeah, so going into my degree, I was pretty set on accounting. And then I did a little bit of work in it and found out about financial planning. And then about a week later was when the Burke Britton Open Day popped up. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll go and have a run and see what it's like there. And came along here, asked the questions I wanted to know, met all the people, like lovely, lovely place. And it was like perfect timing for me to figure out, that works for me. And then coming out the back of that, got asked for an interview kind of thing. And then, yeah, that's history. Still here and still loving it. But yeah, like for my experience, it is take those opportunities. It is take advantage of what comes your way at different times. Like it may not seem like the perfect time, but like everything works out in the end. And if you said no to something like that, you could be missing out on the best thing that happened to you, kind of thing.
Yeah. So, Bridie, for our listeners' benefit, is there another opportunity for them to do things like that at Burke Britton?
There sure is, actually. We've got another open day coming up in about 3 weeks' time on the Monday. So, yeah, if you're interested, let us know. You reach out to the practice and we can jot your name down and you can find out what we're all about.
Daniel, maybe this is a good opportunity for you to maybe explain a little bit around your intro to the business. I know you've done a separate podcast, but maybe you could just summarise for our listeners.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Bridie. Work experience, internships, all that sort of stuff. It's very beneficial. I didn't know that I wanted to become a financial planner until I began at Burke Britton through that internship. You get exposed to the field, you start to see what they really do, and that's the best way to learn. So definitely put yourself out there. Even just email a practice, ask them, can I do a couple of weeks here, even over the summer, even if it's not related to your uni. You just want to just get an insight into what something's like. If you're thinking about a career, definitely. But yeah, so with my path, I ended up getting in contact with Burke Britton. And yeah, as soon as I got the internship, loved it, got offered the full-time role and haven't regretted it since. It's been a great experience.
Yeah, and I think from our perspective, we're always on the lookout for talent to join the team. We have really big plans to continue to grow the business, support more clients. So we're really mindful that we need really good people sort of coming up that mentoring chain, understanding client relationships, and then, plugging in sort of behind the scenes the technical aspects. Because the technical is what you'll learn through your studies. The practical experience is what you'll have exposure and an opportunity to address when you're here working within the practice.
Definitely. The next one we had was sort of a little bit like along the lines of what we have been talking about. But we've got here personalities to match roles. So obviously, if you're not a big people person, financial advising may not be the right career. So we're like, how do you distinguish from your personality what might be the right role for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, again, that probably comes back to, as you said, Bridie, just taking up any opportunities that you have available to you to go and do some placement or do an internship, or potentially it's even through part-time work that you might do while you're studying in a professional services firm, getting an understanding of what that profession does day to day. In financial planning, we're not very good at explaining to the broader community what we actually do. And my kids summarize my job as I talk to people all day. So if you don't enjoy talking and you don't enjoy people, it's probably not the right profession for you. However, that said, there are absolutely roles that are more technical nature. A role which we call a paraplanner, which probably most people have never heard of, they actually produce the formal written advice documents. So you might love the technical aspects of financial planning, but not be client facing all day, every day. So there's absolutely still opportunities within the profession, but that's ensuring that any role is right for you, and potentially that role might simply be a stepping stone to something else in your career progression. So again, just take up every opportunity that's in front of you to make connections and grow your skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in regards to with your personality matching, how important would you say looking at the company that you're going to apply for, or that whether you're deciding whether to accept the job or not to accept the job, how important do you value like the company's values matching with your own, and also just the culture?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the values and the culture are actually first and foremost what you should base your decisions on. The difficulty there is understanding the culture until you're actually working in the business. I would suggest that most employers will still have trial periods though. So, if it looks like the business is a good fit, then go and give yourself every opportunity to understand that business and understand where you do think that is a good long-term fit for you. Even if ultimately you decide that that's not the right fit for you, make every effort to do a really great job while you're there, so that, again, you don't burn any bridges, you make connections, you might meet colleagues or other professionals within that network that then open doors for other opportunities.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So talking about not burning bridges, would that reflect back to your example where you were working with the accounting firm and then you met Peter on that day? You're not burning a bridge with your previous work, but you found something that you feel might suit you better. So not burning that bridge. You're not destroying any relationships. You're not letting go of anything that you don't feel is a bad thing for you necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I was 4 years in that accounting practice, and I worked my way through a few different roles. And again, when I left, it was all on good terms. I'm pretty confident that if I'd started here and it didn't work out, I probably could have gone back to that role. And again, there's still connections that we have some exposure to in our work now. So yeah, don't burn bridges.
Yeah.
Geelong's a small place.
Especially in a financial planning business, there's so many connections that we have to have, not just with clients, but with other businesses. So obviously accountants, mortgage brokers, those sort of businesses, we try to maintain those connections as best as possible. And you don't realize how important they can become to ensuring that your client's happy, satisfied, and overjoyed with their performances.
Yeah, a question for you then, Daniel. Did you know that was the case before coming into
Not at all.
planning? Yeah.
Not at all. So an initial, I guess, common theme that people thought about financial planning, including myself for a little while, was, it's just kind of investing, that sort of stuff. And then you start to get into it and then you realize it's not even financial planning, it's actually life planning. It's about everything around that client to ensure that they're supported on the financial side, but also in the relationship side.
Yeah. Did it surprise you that we collaborate with clients, other professionals, and we don't, we respect the boundaries of, let's say we're talking accounting for the tax side of things and making sure that we work together collaboratively for that client?
I didn't realise there was such a fine line between the different professions. Like, obviously, as financial advisors, we can't give advice on tax necessarily. We can to an extent, but it's the same for accountants. They can't give advice to an extent. So being able to work with those different professions, it overcomes that line of we can't help you necessarily, like to the client. So in that respect, it really surprised me how there was a line, but where can you cross it kind of thing. But yeah, having those relationships with different professions definitely helps support the client further.
Yeah, absolutely, because we look very broadly at a client's whole set of financial circumstances. And a good example is, we always ask the question, you guys have been in all the appointments, do you have a will? Have you prepared powers of attorney? And people go, oh, it's on the to-do list. And you go, okay, well, there's risks involved in not having those things taken care of. We don't write wills, but we'll connect you with a really great estate planning solicitor to make sure that what you put in place there complements any of the advice and strategies that we're putting in place for you. So again, when you think about, for people listening, getting yourself in a position where you can take up opportunities, just connecting with other professionals can be a really good way to get an understanding of, oh, maybe it's not quite financial planning, but maybe I love accounting. Please don't move to accounting, Bridie. But again, it just gives you exposure in those different fields. And yeah, for us and our clients, it means that none of their needs are unmet.
Mm-hmm. This podcast was kind of a bit of a general sort of around careers and income. The next point we had is different types of leave. So for me, coming through from 15 to 20, I've only ever had a casual job. So I didn't have sick leave. I didn't have annual leave. Could you talk a little bit around the differences around the different types of leave that you can have going into a part-time job?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So if you're a permanent part-time employee or a full-time employee, you will be entitled to leave provisions. And that's going to be a little bit dependent on the award that you paid under or potentially the contract that you have directly with your employer. Normally it means something like 4 weeks of annual leave per year. And I think the figure is 10 days of what's called personal leave. So personal leave includes things like being sick yourself or providing support to your immediate family members. And you'll also start accruing some long service leave, but normally you wouldn't be able to access that long service leave until potentially 7 or 10 years down the track. So yeah, there are certainly other benefits to, finishing up your studies and getting into the workplace. Perhaps the other side of that is that you will also receive some super guarantee contributions, which are 12% on top of the income that your employer pays to you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Delta. Great insight. Going back to your careers, so looking for room, I guess, in growth and development in a job that you're looking for. How would you go about looking for that? Like, kind of what to look for, I guess. Obviously, is there personal growth? Is there an income growth in a job? Is there a professional growth in terms of job status, like a pathway to a higher position? How would you go about that?
Yeah, it's probably fair to say for most people who are exiting tertiary education, they are keen to grow and learn in their roles. So if you can find a workplace or an employer that's going to give you opportunities, you might start as an entry-level position, but if you have opportunities to move up the career ladder, generally once you have more responsibilities, you have more income and so on. So yeah, that's probably finding an employer who'll be open to providing you with those opportunities. But in any workplace, you have a chance to hone your skills and continue to learn. So any chance that you have to step up and do something maybe that's just outside of your comfort zone, because that's where we learn when we're out of our comfort zone. Again, I'll just say take up those opportunities, and whether that gives you the ability to advance your career, generate some more income from the work that you're doing, and just, continue to develop your skills.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then building off stepping out of your comfort zone to learn, we've also got here, it's important to have support and training. Especially going into a new job, you're not going to know everything. Uni's great, but it doesn't necessarily teach you the hands-on side of different practices, especially in a role as a financial advisor. Yeah, I'm learning the concepts at uni, but putting them into practice is so different. As a first professional job, having that sort of support and training, is that important? Is that needed?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say to you that if you're in a position to identify someone in your workplace who you could see could be a mentor for you, just go and ask them the question. And it doesn't have to be anything, overly formalized. It could just be that you've developed a particularly good working relationship with someone in your business, and you just say to them, every Friday afternoon, can I have 15 minutes of your time? I just want a trusted person who I can go to for feedback, that can give me support and learning, so that I can continue to develop my skills. I was very fortunate in this business that, predominantly Peter took on that role for me. It was unofficial, but he absolutely took on that role. And I'm sure you've had that same experience with him, where he will take time to ensure he explains things, that you understand them, because ultimately we understand that as the young people in our business coming through, once you understand those things, you're so much better placed to, have that experience and skill set under your belt to assist our clients. So, yeah, my advice for young people listening is try and find yourself a mentor.
So a lot of people coming out of university or might still be in university looking at accepting either part-time, full-time jobs. Prior to that, they may have been working casual. So they never really had reviews. There's not really much feedback. It's just kind of go to work, do the job, go home. So a lot of reviews now consist of, and targets and goals consist of KPIs. So maybe just explain, if you can, KPIs, like what are they? How do they work? Expectations around that.
Yeah, so in the interest of no jargon, KPIs means key performance indicators. So they can be called all sorts of different things, but generally they're a measurement of success in your role. So if you have KPIs or key performance indicators, those things should be communicated to you clearly at the commencement of your role. And ultimately, they're normally something that's perhaps a little bit of a stretch goal, so that you can be really clear on the expectations of yourself in the workplace. Sometimes those KPIs might have like bonus incentives, for example. If there's a particular target and you go beyond that target, maybe there's some sort of financial or other type of incentive in you achieving those. I think the other part of your question, Daniel, was around reviews. Maybe the two of you could talk a bit about your experience with reviews in the workplace so far.
Yeah. So far what I've done is a quarterly review. So it's usually they're just sort of a check-in, like how are you going? Are you still enjoying your work? Is there anything you want to change? Anything you're not enjoying? And then it's also reflecting on what I'm doing well, kind of thing. Like we do them with Amy, our practice manager. And yeah, it's literally just a quick sit-down chat. As I said, how are you going? What needs to change? And yeah, it's a good way to kind of keep track of your progress within the business, what you're doing well, what you may need more training on, reflecting back to training. But yeah, good way to kind of keep track of that.
Yeah, so is that a good feedback loop for you, Bridie, so that you can perhaps have some feedback around, we've identified perhaps you need some more training or support in this area, or you're really nailing this and we want to push you and stretch you and we want you to take on this particular responsibility. Yeah. Would that be the same for you, Daniel?
Yeah, definitely. I think the business does it really well. They do both constructive feedback, which is never a negative thing, because anytime someone's willing to offer you feedback, it's a great thing, because if they're holding it inside themselves, it can build up anger potentially. So it's always better when they tell you, but they tell you, the business does it really well, where they tell you in a nice way, where it's like, we're not looking to identify you as a person at fault. We're looking at identification in the process and a way we can improve that process for the benefit of the business and yourself. So I think that, the feedback during those quarterly reviews definitely helps. And it's also reflective on the business too. So it's also a reflection on yourself, where we can improve, and then it's where can the business improve too. So to make you do your job in a comfortable way and to enjoy what you're doing too.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And we always say feedback is a gift. It's not always easy to receive feedback, especially if it's not what you anticipated. But again, if that's, not quite what you expected, it's an opportunity for you to go, okay, reflecting on that, I didn't do so well. Next time I'm going to do this differently to get myself the best opportunity to be really successful. And I think just from a mindset perspective here at Burke Britton, we are fairly self-critical because we want all of our clients to have really fantastic experiences. We want to give really good advice. So where our team members see gaps in processes, for example, Daniel, we always encourage you to come to the table with the identification of this is not quite working, and I think this is how we can improve it. So, yeah, that sort of ties into, reviews around yourself as an individual and the business as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. The next one we had was comparing jobs, like what to look for. Like if you've got a job that on paper it looks the exact same, how do you compare the two? How do you know which one's the right one for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you had two jobs in front of you that seemed very similar and maybe had the same rate of pay, for example, I'd probably look at other things around culture. What's the culture in those respective businesses? What's the opportunity for career growth and progression? And what are some other possible benefits that you might be able to access as an employee? Those other benefits could be very wide-ranging. One that we chatted about was the potential that perhaps your employer has an insurance program that they actually pay for you to be part of. Probably not highest on your list of priorities when you're first starting in the workforce, but it could include things like income protection insurance, which is designed to provide you a replacement of your income if you're unable to work due to an illness or injury, for example. So there are lots of other potential benefits. It could be a bonus structure. Again, if you've got an understanding of what those, say, key performance indicators of your role are, there could be financial incentives to exceeding those. So look more broadly at those things as well.
Thanks, Delta. Finally, I think one of the ones that I'm sure everyone loves to talk about, taxes. So maybe just explaining like how they work and I guess what the levels are. Does everyone, I guess no one, when you're first coming out of uni, if you're not studying a commerce degree or stuff like that, not everyone has a real great understanding of how they work, what they are. Is everyone taxed the same? That sort of stuff. So maybe just providing a little bit of an insight into how it works, really.
I'm going to reverse that question and Uno reverse it on the two of you. Like, given that you're both in, the commerce field of study, what did you know when you left university about tax?
Do you want to start?
No, I'll let you start.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm still in uni, so I'm still learning.
Your dad's an accountant, Bridie.
I know, I should know. But I'd start with probably marginal tax rates. So your income depends, your tax depends on your income. If you're earning a higher income, you're going to pay more tax. There's ways you can reduce your tax, which is why you come to a financial advisor, to, drop your assessable income, which is your takeaway pay pretty much, is then your tax depends on that assessable income. And then you obviously have your super dropped into that as well, but you're taxed on that differently. There's lots of different complicated parts to it, I guess. But yeah.
Nailed it. Yeah, we have a progressive tax system, so the marginal tax rates, the more the more you earn, the more tax you pay on that additional level of income. But most importantly, you do have some control over the end tax bill that you get, because if you have things that can reduce your taxable income, such as deductions, so perhaps if you're starting out in the workforce, you don't have a huge number of deductions, but maybe you had to buy some specific uniform or a bag or something to utilise in your workplace, talk to your accountant. But any of those things potentially could be tax deductible, and that's going to reduce your overall tax bill at the end of the year. I would suspect that for most people leaving tertiary education, that they've got a student loan debt for their tertiary education. So in relation to that HECS debt, that is repaid to the government depending on the level of income that you generate in each financial year. So you disclose that to your employer, they withhold a little bit more tax than someone else earning the same level of income as you, to ultimately try and get you in a position where you get to the end of the financial year and you don't have a large tax bill, for example, because you might need to repay some of that HECS in that financial year.
Mm-hmm.
What else from a tax perspective? We talk about tax a lot here, don't we?
We do, yes. Does pop up every now and then. Or from a tax perspective.
The only other comment or note that I'd made was just being proactive, with your tax. So what I mean by that is, again, if there's anything that you've had to spend some money on in your line of work that is claimable as a tax deduction, even if you're not sure, just keep the receipt for it. And if you use an accountant, ask them when you go to lodge your tax return if any of those expenses would be tax deductible. As your career progresses and you grow into higher tax brackets, that's where it is definitely advantageous to start being more proactive with any other ways that you can offset your tax. So potentially you could look at things like voluntary contributions to super. Again, probably not high on the priority list for someone that's just leaving university, but if you look at the benefits that can provide you over the long term, it really magnifies if you start young. So just be mindful of those things and don't sort of wait till the end of the financial year and then get a tax bill and think, oh no, what am I going to do?
Yep.
Perfect. I think that's the end of the podcast for today. Thank you, Dalta, very much for joining us and providing us some insight. Hopefully the listeners enjoyed that one. And we'll see you next time.
Just going to jump in at the end. We don't have a formal questions entry anywhere, but if anybody listening does have any questions that they want addressed, anything we're not talking about in the podcast, please do reach out, send us an email, reach out through the Facebook page. Any way that you're listening to this, please do reach out.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're keen to understand more about how financial advice could benefit you, follow us on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at Burke Britton FP, or Google Burke Britton Financial Partners. Check out our client reviews, testimonials, and make a time to meet one of our certified financial planners by clicking Book Now on our website. Thanks for listening.
Any information contained in this podcast is of a general nature only. No account was taken as to the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. Therefore, before making any decision, listeners should consider the appropriateness of any information with regard to their particular objective, financial situation, needs, and seek independent advice from a licensed professional specific to their circumstances.
All right, hit it.
That translates to don't be a moron and act on what some random person says on a podcast. Take personal responsibility, do your homework, ask questions, and speak to an actual human that knows what they're talking about before you do anything. PB Financial Solutions Proprietary Limited, trading as Burke Britton Financial Partners, are authorised representatives of AMP Financial Planning Limited, AFS, licence number 232706.